Plaintiff Christine Geckler met the defendant because their daughters were cheerleaders together, and the two of them became good friends. Christine claims she loaned the defendant money because her husband was being unfaithful, but she has yet to be repaid, despite the fact that the defendant made a good amount of money being a surrogate mother. Defendant Dawn Sullivan admits that she and her husband were having some problems when she first borrowed money from Christine. Dawn insists she's repaid some of the loan to Christine, but she's been struggling to make ends meet.
Tell me how she owes you.
I first met Dawn in 2003 through a youth sports program called Escondido Pop Warner, cheerleading and football. And our daughters were both cheerleaders, and Dawn was a board member. And I saw a lot of places where they could use some improvement, so I made some suggestions, and Dawn suggested that I join the board. Okay. So I did, and Dawn and I quickly became close friends and learned about Dawn's personal life and her financial woes and things of that nature. And then approximately...
How did you learn about them?
She told me. She told me through conversation. Mm-hmm. And so as a result of that, Dawn was having some financial problems. Her husband was... not being faithful to her, and she needed to move very quickly out of her apartment.
Her husband was giving his money to his other woman.
The
household money.
Yeah, the household money was not going to that household, put it that way.
Oh, instead of paying their rent, he paid her rent.
Perhaps that's what was happening. I don't know that for a fact, but as a result of that, she needed to move. So, let
me ask her about the background on this case before we get into specifics of the loan.
All right.
First of all, what she stated is true. We did meet through our cheer program, and we became really good friends. Christine came to me numerous of times complaining about situations as far as the program went and had good ideas. So I said, instead of complaining, why don't you join the board? We became close friends, so she's actually correct on that. Mm-hmm. My husband did go his opposite ways. Don't know where his money was going to, but it wasn't coming to us. Okay. I did not make ends meet. So therefore, she was a friend next to me, and I confided in her quite a bit.
So you and your husband ultimately divorced?
No.
Okay. Are you all reconciled?
Yes.
All right. Are you able?
That's why I don't volunteer for anything. I don't want my wife cheating on me.
Because you don't want your wife cheating on you.
Yeah.
So you're right there, and that's not an excuse not to volunteer. Go ahead with the terms of the loans and when they occurred.
Okay, the first loan was given to her on September 10th for $1,200, and that was to pay a deposit for a new place she was moving into.
When was it supposed to be repaid?
When she received the deposit back from the place she was moving out of.
Okay.
And that never happened.
All right.
So over a course of a year has passed. We're still doing Pop Warner at this point. We're still involved in cheer. Our daughters were good cheerleaders, so we made it to nationals in Florida. So we went to Florida that year in 2006.
How does she pay for that if she can't give you your money back?
Well, the Pop Warner League pays for the coach and the president, which Dawn was the president at the time. So our 2 tickets were paid for. The next second loan was given to her on August 7th, 2007. Okay. Similar situation.
How much?
$2,400. I was very skeptical to loan the second amount of money. But what happened is Dawn was in a really bad situation. She has 2 kids, and I felt that she needed some help. Her husband was not helping her again. She had a good job, and the circumstances surrounding this was the same thing. She needed first a deposit to get into her new place. And
those are the only 2 loans?
Yes, but the second amount of money that I did loan her, Your Honor, was from a PAL loan, which is a personal line of credit, because I didn't have $2,400 cash to give her.
You borrowed money to pay her? Knowing that she hadn't paid you the $1,200 back, you wouldn't put your credit at risk. Knowing that she
I had a guarantee, Your Honor. She had a 401k check.
I don't know if I'd have gotten it at all.
Well,
I'd have moved her in before I paid.
Well, I didn't have big enough. I offered that, Your Honor. I was going to buy a house and move her in there, so I knew I could get my money, but that didn't work out either.
This has been 2 years, ma'am.
Correct.
You haven't paid her a dime?
No, I've given her some money.
Well, how much?
$500.
Okay.
And I struggle to do that.
Okay.
Just so you know that.
But you reconciled with your husband. How long has that been?
He doesn't make any money, and if he is working, it's a bonus. He's in construction, you know.
Doing what in construction?
Well, now he works for like a gas pump station.
Doing what?
An installation.
Construction.
For 3 years, it was very
Ma'am, construction workers are paid highly. And how many children do you all have?
2.
You could have paid this woman her money back over the course of 2 years.
Plus,
like I said.
Well, he didn't work for.
She was a surrogate, which is a surrogate mom. And what happens is when you become a surrogate, you get money for that. And so that's where my $500 came from. And I don't know how much money she actually received, but I have friends that received over $50,000, and they also pay living expenses. And so she received that, and I didn't see any of that money either. So there was all these promises to pay, and it just nothing ever happened. And our
First
friendship.
of all, when I did the surrogacy, I did it out of desperancy. And my husband would not work for
you have no
almost
excuse.
2 years.
You're worse than Doyle. I know how much he makes, and he won't pay me back.
Just so you know, he wasn't
still
working.
Won't pay me back, huh?
He wasn't working construction during that time. He just now started construction.
Okay,
so I
just now.
should
All right, we should be able to pay soon
please.
because construction.
No, he had a desk job making barely any money. I mean, barely minimum wage. So one of the things when we got back together was, you will provide for this family, you will change your ways, or you got to go. I can't.
All right. Well, you're going to have to pay her, though, because you have no legal defense. And let me inform you and all the other ladies that are watching, or wives, that if your husband starts cutting off the money and misuses it and won't grant you enough money to take care of the household, then you should threaten him with separation. You say, hey, you're not taking care of the household. I don't know what you're doing with the money. This is unfair. And then you file for emergency financial assistance, and the court will order him to pay. And I bet you'll come back home then and pay. Judgment for the plaintiff. There's no legal defense. She just can't afford it. Your husband working construction now, make him pay. Have a good day. Judgment for the plaintiff.